Hi everybody, my name is Bárbara Marrero and welcome to Unmasked with Bárbara. This is a show where I interview strong women from all walks of life in hopes to bring light in the midst of chaos. We're unmasking and talking all things beauty, body positivity, entrepreneurship, and so much more.
There's like no other option, so we don't want to think about the other option.
Yes.
It's kind of like that meme of Cardi B where it's like,
What was the reason?
I was like so pissed.
You did not fight through all that you fought through to stop here.
Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for an incredible journey. Are you ready? Let's go.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Unmasked. Today we have an amazing woman that I cherish deeply. I've known her for many years, and funny enough, we actually came across each other's paths, and I think it was meant to be for this purpose. Her name is Christy Jordan, and she is just incredible, and I think you guys are going to love what she has to say today. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm so happy you decided to join and be a part of this and this vision and this project that I'm doing.
Yes, thank you.
I think you are an amazing woman, and I think you have a lot of positive things that you'll be able to share with us today, and I think you'll be able to help a lot of women that go through some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So tell us about what you do. You're a psychologist and human sex trafficking advocate. Tell us about all of that.
So I have a private practice and I do counseling and therapy full time, life coaching as well. I do online sessions and in-office sessions. I do family counseling, marriage counseling, relationship counseling, children, adults, and then I do counseling and outreach for human trafficking as well. And then I run the human trafficking hotline for Central Florida.
Wow.
As well.
So what got you started in that? Like what drove you to take part in such a strong purpose and calling and advocate for something that's so heavy? And a lot of people don't even know what human sex trafficking is. So I feel like maybe you can talk about that a little bit and tell us about what that is exactly and what got you there.
Yeah, I think I always knew, honestly, that this was my calling. I attend human trafficking, even I'm licensed in addiction, so I work with addiction as well. So just those populations in general, people tend to neglect or think it's their fault or they chose that, when that's not necessarily the case. So for me, when I see gaps in services or resources or just neglected populations, I want to fill those gaps with resources, with
That's
time.
So nice.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because I actually, the first time I ever came across human sex trafficking, we spoke over lunch one day about it. I was just in awe. I was on a missions trip and it was in the Dominican Republic. And that was the first time I was ever introduced to women that were struggling and coming out of that. And they were basically slaves to this life and these men. And I was just in shock. Like my heart was just broken. And I could not just stop crying inside because I wanted to free them. But there's only so much you can do, And I feel like with a lot of women, they feel like they don't see a way out. It's really hard for them to see a life outside of that. So I feel like they're a lot of times slaves to that life and even slaves in their own head. I learned that a lot of them don't see a life outside of that. They've become so enslaved and stuck that they don't see anything outside of that. And I don't know, I know I definitely want to do more. So I want you to later kind of teach us and let us know how we can get involved. But before that, I wanted to talk about your books that you're writing. You're working on 2 books right now, right?
Yes.
Tell us about those 2.
So I'm writing more relationship-based books. So I have one coming out. It's called Single Sabbatical. That's for single women. And then a marriage counseling workbook as well.
Nice.
And same as like I said before, I kind of tend to see gaps where there's not a lot of emphasis placed in psychology or counseling for single women. Even marriage counseling, there's just a lack of resources that I saw to refer people to that could be helpful to them.
Okay.
So I just started creating those resources.
Nice. And I want to talk a little bit more on the single sabbatical one, because I'm single and I feel like we're in the season of women finding themselves and kind of, you know, figuring out what it is that they should be doing with, you know, their time and their free time. And I'm actually on a covenant or single sabbatical to this year that I decided to, coming out of relationships, I realized how much they suck the life out of you. And if you're not careful, you can lose sight of your vision and your goals and your calling and what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
And I saw that in myself a lot. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a year off, just like not date, not talk to anybody, just to focus 1000% on my projects and my goals and see where that will take me. And I feel like that's literally what the single sabbatical is, right?
Yeah, and that's very exciting for you.
Thank you.
So super awesome.
It hasn't been easy.
Yes. But yeah, I think just counseling wise, I've counseled a lot of single women. They're coming to me out of heartbreak, or just trying to figure it out, or they're pressured by society in some ways during that single time. So that was kind of the reason for the book too, because I love to provide resources for clients, and there's honestly not a lot of books out there for single women, or
it's all in marriage.
Good,
literally.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. And so that workbook, how does it help women guide themselves through that?
Pretty much that's what it is. It's a 1-year guide, workbook journal style, so it's interactive. And it's really to guide you through that season of singleness, whether you're coming out of a heartbreak or if you're just, you've been single long term. Either way, doesn't make a difference. But it's more of a guide, because I've seen just in our society in general, when you're single, the focus is, okay, how can you get into a relationship? How do you keep a man? How can you get a man? How do you need to focus on dating as opposed to yourself in that season. So really, singleness is usually focused on the goal of getting into a relationship.
I feel like a lot of people and a lot of women tend to feel like, especially, I mean, coming out of a relationship, I think we're a little jaded and we're like, we're not dating, we're not talking to anybody, like I'm gonna do me, this is how it's gonna be. But eventually we fall back into that mindset of dating, marriage, kids, because that's like what was told we were supposed to be doing. That's the norm. And if you're not doing that, then what are you doing as a woman? And I feel like it's horrible. It's unhealthy for women to feel like they need to think about their next boo or their next date instead of just focusing on themselves and not focusing on yourselves to prepare you for the next relationship. Because a lot of times, and I've seen that, women are like, oh, I'm gonna prepare myself. So, and I feel like a lot of times people coach women to prepare yourself for the next. So be ready for the next. So, and it's like, no, be ready for yourself. Like, what are you doing? Like, just focus on yourself. Why do you want to be in a relationship? Literally, like, if it comes and he's the one, amazing. But in the meantime, work on yourself. Be a boss. Do what you have to do. So what you've seen in your experience with women and seeing singleness as a negative thing, and why do people see it as a negative thing?
That's a good question. I personally don't know. I feel like me and you
I do not get it. I mean, but
what I've seen is, I do think it comes from a lot of pressure, even from, you know, different cultures or our society, parents, friends, just like outside influence. Feels like a lot of pressure on people, or just the media in general. It's focused on sexuality, focused on relationships, to where it feels like you're on some sort of timeline, like you were saying, that might not be reality in a sense, or might not be realistic for some people. So I think a timeline is irrelevant, but I've seen a lot of people who are pressured by a timeline and age, pressure from parents, you know, outsiders, or...
And going back to and just to highlight the human sex trafficking, do you think that the women that fall under human sex trafficking a lot of times fall under it because of this mindset that they need to be with somebody and they end up trapped in that lifestyle, or am I completely off?
No, I think it's there is a lot of brainwashing in sex trafficking to where it's very conflicting, very confusing, to where it does go to those attachments, like you were saying. It's how do I get out? How did I even get here type of mindset. But it is, a lot of them think it's their boyfriend, or, you know, sometimes their family members are trafficking and they feel like they're just doing the right thing. But it is that mindset of manipulation and, you know, attachment in some ways.
Wow, that's just, the more I try to think about that, it's so frustrating to know that there's women out there struggling. And I don't know what that is, but I do know what it is to be like in a relationship where you're completely manipulated, your thoughts and everything that you're doing, you feel like you're doing right, but it's all being manipulated and it all comes out wrong, and it just feels bad.
Right.
And so I can only imagine what it would be like to be in a relationship with somebody and be manipulated into doing all these things, and you out of love or you out of feeling like you're obligated, this is what you have to do.
Right.
And a lot of times it's normal relationships too that that stems from, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like I was saying, just even about family members or, you know, upbringing, it seems normalized. The same, like you're saying about singleness or getting into a relationship, you've been conditioned in some type of way to think, oh, I have to be in a relationship or I have to be dating. Like, these are the ways of, you know, growing.
Yeah. But I think it's so good what you're doing, and I think these workbooks and being able to help women kind of guide themselves through this single period of their lives. I encourage anybody that is single or going through some sort of self-discovery in their lives to literally get any type of resource that they can, because I feel like a lot of times women want to do more. They a lot of times they don't want to be in a relationship, but they're just stuck, and they don't know how to take that singleness and that peace period, I call it, to just kind of find themselves and see like what they can get out of it. So I think this workbook would be really, really helpful, and even honestly, even going to counseling too. I feel like mental health is one of those topics that is not spoken about like the way that it should be. I feel like mental health is a much bigger issue than what people think it is. And I think being able to find the resources and speak to professionals and so psychologists like you, I feel like that would be so helpful. And it's helped me in the past too.
Yeah. And I definitely think even just coming out of a relationship like you're talking about, a lot of women are pressured. Oh, it's fine, you'll find another one better than him, so let's get the ball rolling. You know, get back into dating, don't worry about him, when it's, you know, you need to focus on healing first.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, healing is such an important thing, and such a topic too that's heavy on my heart, because I feel like coming out of a relationship, I feel like when you come out, you have like all these anger and emotions and all this hurt, but then your healing comes. And a lot of people don't take the healing stage the way that it should be taken. Healing is such an important thing, and if you don't do it properly and you don't give yourself that time to heal the way that you should, you'll jump into the next thing, even if it's not a relationship. You'll jump into your next project, you'll jump into your next job, into your next career, into whatever you're doing with all of this pain still inside. And what ends up happening is you project that into whatever else you're doing. And it's unhealthy for yourself and anybody else that's surrounded by you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What advice do you have for anybody that is either coming out of a really toxic relationship or even coming out of sex trafficking, whether it's a male or female?
I definitely encourage counseling 100%. And I know that's cliche because I'm a counselor, but I really believe that any season of life, counseling is beneficial. And that's just a really great starting point. Just for sex trafficking victims and human trafficking, the average length of counseling or restoration for them is minimal 2 years.
Wow.
So that just puts a perspective on how long the healing process takes. And that's usually intensive counseling. So inpatient or where they're living somewhere to where they're getting full-time counseling. So just thinking of that in, like you're saying, even the perspective of coming out of a toxic relationship or just feeling like you're not able to navigate the season that you're in. A counselor's really good for that. And any length of time is however long you need, like that's really the goal for counseling. And just another resource just for people who are in a relationship or married. I just saw a gap in relationship books, because even when you go to a bookstore, even search online for resources, usually it's sexual based, like you need to have more sex to heal your relationship, that'll fix everything, or you probably just need to separate and get divorced. So there's really a lack of resources in between that. The same for singles, I call it cosmopolitan advice, but it's usually those cliche, you know, how to win a man in 10 days, 10 tips to keep your man.
Oh my God.
But people really base their life
on those books.
Resources, So I think that that's one thing that it's, you know, not to fall into that trap or feel like you're doing something wrong if you're not engaging in those, you know, type of things.
Yeah, that's really good. Tell us where we can find you, when are your books coming out? They should be coming out soon, right?
Yes. Summer 2020.
Yay! So excited. I want to grab the first 2 copies. I'll give the marriage one to my parents and I'll take the single one. So exciting, So tell us where we can find you, your Instagram,
my
website,
Instagram
all of that.
Is Ask Christy. My name is spelled Christy. And then my website is findinghopetoday.com. And all of my resources, my blog, I do online counseling as well, so anyone can reach out to me directly through the website.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show. This is such a good conversation. Thank you.